Today I'll discuss a standout perennial vegetable that's also a fruit and root. You can do so many things with it that it's pretty hard to put it in a single category. You can eat it raw, cooked, sweet or savory. You can even make a syrup from it that's very low in calories and on top of that, good for your health. He has many cool stories about this plant, plus it hides two exceptional features in its tubers. This plant is the Yacon or ground pear. Let's start a new likely fun video on plants and their stories. Well, this is harvest time, and honestly, it's not the time of year when it's the most photogenic, but its beauty is mostly hidden underground. Before going underground, let me introduce this plant, the Yacon or ground pear, Smalanthus sonchifolius. For those interested in Latin, it's in the Asteraceae family like artichokes, daisies, sunflowers, and Jerusalem artichokes. Its flowers actually resemble small sunflowers. Cultivated for over 1,000 years in the Andes of Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador, it was discovered alongside the potato. But unlike the potato, this one hasn't been discussed much until recently, with the trend of new, somewhat exotic fruits and vegetables. As I mentioned at the start, it has two exceptional features that make it a very interesting vegetable. One feature is it produces tubers that are very sweet, as you'll see, but not caloric since the human body doesn't absorb those sugars. I'll discuss that later in the video. If you want an interesting anecdote about this plant, some believe that if the potato ever disappeared, as it nearly did due to environmental factors, a disease that affects the potato, well, Yacon could be a good candidate to replace the potato since there are very few diseases, parasites, or pests that affect this plant. Maybe one day Yacon will replace potatoes on your plate, but potatoes are still good. Actually, maybe we shouldn't wait for that to happen before trying it and you can already start growing it. I'll explain how it works later in the video. It's simple. First, I'll describe the plant, which grows 1.5 to 2.5 meters tall. In bloom, it has hollow stems, large soft leaves, and flowers that resemble tiny sunflowers. It blooms late, around October, and in some areas rarely flowers. Regardless, it doesn't produce seeds. It can only be propagated by cutting the tubers, so let's talk about these tubers now. Let's take a look at these tubers. And here there's actually something quite exceptional that I hardly know from any other plant. This plant produces two very different types of tubers. On one hand, there are storage tubers, which are the ones we can eat, and on the other hand, there are propagation tubers, which we can only use to multiply the plant for the storage tubers. So, they have smooth skin, there isn't a single bud on them. Don't try to replant them, it won't work. As for the flesh, for mine, the flesh is white. Some have yellow flesh, others pinkish orange, which are said to be the sweetest. But personally, in France, I've never seen any, so if you know of one, let me know in the comments. I'm interested. The flavor is very sweet, I'll discuss this more later in the video, and it's also quite juicy. The tubers are up to 90% water. And if you want another interesting anecdote, Andean farmers used to use it as a gourd. In fact, they would take one or two tubers with them when they went to work in the fields, and whenever they were thirsty, they just had to bite into one. It's so juicy, it kept them hydrated. There's another story that says they would even give them to children who ate them like candy because they're so sweet, good in every way you can eat them. I'll return to that soon. Wait and don't eat them yet. Alright, and next to them, these propagation tubers are the ones we use to multiply them. I don't think you can eat those. I haven't seen any source saying you could. Let me know if you have info, but I doubt they're edible. It's really much tougher, more leathery, and in any case, much less pleasant to eat than the ones from the store. This is interesting because big ones can't be replanted and small ones can't be eaten, so mistakes are unlikely. A quick word about productivity, since that's one of the really interesting points. I'll tell you how much I managed to produce on my end. If you've already grown some, let me know in the comments how much you produced, and for those who don't know about it, you'll see it's really impressive. So, with one plant, my record is almost 8 kilos of tubers from a single plant, and a plant that produces 8 kilos of tubers. With these small propagation tubers, I managed with just one plant to produce about 50 plants for the following year. So from one plant, we're going to break off lots of small propagation tubers. That way, each little piece that separates, that breaks off and has a bud, will produce a new plant. The next year, each plant will produce just as many propagation tubers again. So it's exponential, so in terms of productivity, it's huge. A quick note on how to grow the plant. So we're going to collect these propagation tubers. I'll add a link here to our online sales page if you'd like to buy tubers. We'll keep them frost-free this winter. I keep them in buckets, in damp sand. It can be in storage bins, just like you would keep any tuber during the winter. It just needs to be in a frost-free area, or well buried in sand so the tuber doesn't freeze. Then, in the spring, as soon as there's no more risk of frost, you plant them outside in rich soil, just like you would grow potatoes or any other vegetable. The richer and more watered the soil, and the longer, hotter the summer, the more productive the plant. You let the plant grow well and wait for the first frost to harvest it. So, it's quite peculiar since the plant can't tolerate frost, but it appreciates frost in a way. Since when the plant freezes, it makes the tubers better to eat. So for harvesting, as soon as the plant is frozen, you take it out of the ground. We separate the ones that are edible from the ones that aren't. The ones that aren't edible are stored for the following spring, and the ones that are edible, we're going to let them dry and ripen a little. We don't eat them right away. And actually, that's another interesting story. Some people tried tasting them right after harvesting, thinking they weren't that good. And actually, if you let them ripen for 2, 3, 4 weeks, after a certain amount of time, some sugars will develop in the tubers, which will make them taste much better. In summary, we harvest them after the first frosts. We must be careful during harvest because the tubers are very brittle and fragile, and it's common to avoid breaking them. After harvest, we separate, dry, and begin eating the storage tubers about a month later. And the propagation tubers, we store them in a trench and wait until spring to plant them. Even for me, sometimes I've put them directly into potting soil in pots and kept the pots in a frost-free place, but not somewhere warm either. You don't want them to grow too soon, so keep them until spring. When they start growing in spring, I plant them outside. Be careful, they're very attractive when they begin to grow. For slugs and snails, make sure to protect them well at the beginning until the plant is developed enough to be less fragile. Now, let's discuss how to eat them. As mentioned, there are many ways: raw, cooked, sweet, or savory. You can eat them in many different ways. It's a root fruit you can eat like a fruit, with a texture between an apple and a pear, crunchy and very juicy. I just picked them. So, of course, they're not very sweet right now. I think the taste is a bit similar to carrot. Yes, absolutely. Honestly, it's excellent, but in terms of flavor, it's not very strong and it will lose its taste as soon as you mix it with something else. Sauce usually provides the flavor, so you don't really taste the yacon, and cooking it also removes its flavor. So, it's not really interesting for its taste, it's more about the amount of material it produces and also the sugar it provides. You can eat it in salads as a starter or in fruit salads for dessert. You can make compotes mixed with other fruits. You can also make chips out of it. I just saw that on the internet and I really want to try it. It can also be eaten cooked, pureed, roasted or fried. You can prepare it in various ways, including making syrup. You may have seen it at BioCoop near the agave syrup. Because it's so sweet, we'll grate it, juice it, and then reduce it. You need a lot to make syrup. About 35 kilos of tubers are needed for 1 liter of syrup. The taste is decent, between caramel and maple syrup. And then, the other really interesting thing is that it doesn't raise blood sugar in the body. So, a quick note about its benefits. I was going to say medicinal, therapeutic. Well, in any case, its benefits for the body. It's a plant with unique sugars called fructo-oligosaccharides. It's a sugar that tastes sweet, but the body can't absorb it even though the brain recognizes it as sugar. So for all the people who have diabetes problems or who are sensitive to sugar consumption, this can be a good substitute product. Be careful, I'll explain more later. There are restrictions on consuming it, but most importantly, don't eat too much. Yacon resembles sugar, but the body doesn't absorb it. Meanwhile, in the intestines, the microbiota benefits and digestion improves. Plus, it's rich in minerals like calcium and potassium and gently curbs appetite. Nibbling a small piece of tuber can help curb your hunger. So, restriction, but you shouldn't eat too much of it per day either. If you ever see a publication claiming that someone has discovered a miracle food, no, miracle foods don't exist. It's interesting in some ways, but you shouldn't eat too much of it either. And I would say if you've never eaten it before, you definitely shouldn't start eating too much of it all at once. I'll repeat what I said about Jerusalem artichoke or helianthe. This plant contains specific molecules. It's not that we have trouble digesting them, but if we're not used to eating them at first, we might have a bit of trouble. It can cause stomach aches, it can cause gas. So it's not necessarily something very pleasant. If you've never eaten any, start by chewing a small piece one day and no more and wait to see what happens. The next day, eat another piece. If you can, that's perfect. Your microbiota and digestive system will slowly adapt, letting you increase the amount. Eat up to 200 grams per day. There's no need to exceed that. It's interesting as a food, it's interesting as a natural sweetener, but it doesn't raise blood sugar. But it's interesting as long as it's consumed along with a natural, balanced and varied diet. That's it for the tubers. Apparently the leaves can also be eaten, but from everything I've read here and there, they seem to be quite bitter. You can use them as an infusion, but I haven't seen many people say that it's really good either. It serves as forage and animals enjoy eating its leaves. I haven't tried that either. I also saw that it could be interesting as a honey plant, but since it blooms really very late, it's not very interesting in that regard either. Alright, that's it. Yacon has many advantages. It's easy to cook and grow, resists pests and disease, is highly productive, and its yield increases rapidly. So, in a forest garden, it's great to grow. I say in a forest garden because when combined with other crops, it's not bad. It's best to grow it in partial shade or a sunny spot. This year, I grew them mixed with castor bean plants, which gave them a bit of extra shade. It looked really nice and it's productive, it's tasty, so there you go, you can try growing some. You'll see, it's great. Hope you enjoyed and found this video helpful. If so, let me know, like it, and share with others. Subscribe to my channel if you like what I do, and if you want to support me financially as well, you can do so through the Type E platform. And thank you to everyone who will do it, who will support me, without whom I wouldn't be able to take the time to do all this. All right, thank you all. Happy holidays. See you soon. Bye.